Holy High Admiral Rin of the Galactic Council ran a clawed hand through his silver fur in irritation as he reviewed the latest report from the Sol system. His long, pointed ears twitched backward, a sign of growing concern among the Velran species. These humans were becoming increasingly problematic. Not only had they managed to detect and intercept the Council's observation probes, but they'd also had the audacity to send a response message asking for diplomatic contact. Another species rushing to join the galactic community before they're ready. He growled softly to his aide, his fanged muzzle curling slightly. Bring up their planetary data. The holographic display filled with information about Earth, and Rin's golden eyes widened in alarm. Gravity nearly twice the galactic average. Atmospheric pressure is crushing by most standards. Average surface temperature range carries a swing that would kill most sentient species. By the first ones, he whispered, his tail going rigid. It's a death world. The humans' request for diplomatic relations was processed with unprecedented speed, not out of respect but fear. Within a standard cycle, a council delegation had arrived in the Sol system, their ships maintaining a safe distance from Earth, that the humans correctly interpreted as insulting. The diplomatic meeting was a disaster from the start. The human representatives, expecting a warm welcome into a vast galactic community, instead found themselves treated like barely contained predators. The council delegation flinched at every human movement, their universal translators struggling to convert the aggressive tone of human speech into something less threatening. You must understand, Council Representative Midas explained, his own fur standing on end. Your species has developed in unique conditions. The Council has protocols for dealing with Deathworld species. We can offer limited trade rights, restricted technology transfers, and restricted technology transfers. The human ambassador, Rebecca Sheets, kept her voice carefully neutral, despite her rising frustration. With all due respect, we've already detected quantum communications, observed your FTL capabilities, and begun theoretical work on our own versions of your technology. We're not asking for handouts, we're offering collaboration. The council members exchanged alarmed glances. This was precisely what they feared, a Deathworld species advancing too quickly, too aggressively. Their civilizations, built on careful algorithmic progression and AI-guided development, had no framework for handling such rapid advancement. The situation might have remained a diplomatic stalemate if not for the Hegemony Alliance. The faction had been pushing for war against the Federation for cycles, and the discovery of humanity became their perfect excuse. Secret broadcasts began circulating through council space. Footage of human combat sports, historical war documentaries, and particularly effective propaganda showing humans hunting prey by simply following it until it collapsed from exhaustion. These creatures, hegemony propaganda declared, are natural pursuit predators with endurance that defies reason. They heal from grievous wounds, thrive in radiation that would kill civilized species, and show concerning signs of rapid technological advancement. Can we afford to wait until they develop their own FTL capabilities? The Council, paralyzed by indecision, could only watch as tensions escalated. Earth's attempts at neutrality were rejected. The humans would have to choose a side or be considered hostile by default. The decision was made for them when the Hegemony launched a preemptive defensive strike against humanity's newly established Mars and Luna colonies. In the aftermath of the attack, as the Council scrambled to either condemn or condone the action, a single message was broadcast from Earth. It was audio only, delivered in the formal language of Council diplomacy. But something in its tone made even Holy High Admiral Rin's fur stand on end. He recognized the cold fury behind the words. The United Earth Government acknowledges your act of war. We are launching our response. One ship. You may consider this our formal resignation from neutrality. The Council dismissed it as primitive bravado. After all, what could one ship do against the combined might of a galactic power? They would soon find out about the hastily completed vessel that Earth's combined military forces had christened the USS Rotisserie Chicken, a name that the ship's marine contingent had suggested as a joke, and which had stuck, much to the brass's chagrin. The same Marines who would later be heard on captured combat footage cheerfully requesting permission to crack open a fresh box of crayons moments before their first engagement with the Hegemony fleet. The galaxy was about to learn why you don't corner a species that evolved as persistent predators on a death world. They named it what? Holy High Admiral Rin's ears flattened against his skull as he stared at the report. This must be a translation error. No, sir, his aide confirmed, whiskers twitching with nervous energy. Our linguists are quite certain. The humans have named their vessel the USS Rotisserie Chicken. We believe it's a reference to a form of cooked prey they consume. The name was the least of their concerns. The vessel that had emerged from Earth's orbital shipyards defied all conventional military doctrine. It was massive, yes, but its design was unlike anything in known space. Where galactic ships were sleek and streamlined, this human vessel was angular and brutalist. Where Council doctrine demanded sophisticated energy shields, the humans had opted for thick plates of crude armor. Most bizarrely, instead of the standard AI combat systems, the ship appeared to be entirely crewed by living beings. Forward these scans to Grand Admiral Tareth, Rin ordered. The hegemony should know what they're facing, even if it's primitive. Aboard the Rotisserie Chicken, Captain Johnny Banks ignored the snickers from his Marine contingent as he recorded his first log entry. Captain's log, USS Rotisserie Chicken. The brass is still mad about the name, but morale is high. We're carrying the best Earth has to offer, naval personnel who scored highest in tactical simulations, Marines who volunteered, despite knowing this might be a one-way trip, and enough ammunition to make anyone regret starting this war. Engineering reports our kinetic weapon systems are operational, and the Marines have finished painting welcome to the rice fields on the portside hull. God help me, I'm actually starting to like these crayon eaters. The ship's first encounter with the hegemony fleet came 3 days later in the Proxima Centauri system. Grand Admiral Tareth had assembled a fleet of 30 vessels, all equipped with the latest in AI combat systems and energy weapons. The alien commander broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring the entire galaxy could witness what they assumed would be humanity's humiliation. Attention primitive vessel, Tareth's message boomed. You are outnumbered 30-1. Your technology is inferior. Your weapons are obsolete. Surrender now and... Sir, Lieutenant Weathers interrupted, trying to suppress a grin. The Marines are requesting permission to, and I quote, crack open a fresh box of crayons and show these Xenos how we do things downtown. Captain Banks allowed himself a small smile. Tell them they may proceed. Tactical, prepared to demonstrate why humanity never developed energy shields. We never needed them. What followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The Rotisserie Chicken's first action was to launch what appeared to be primitive missiles, easily intercepted by the hegemony's energy screens. But these weren't simple explosives. Each missile burst apart into thousands of tungsten spheres, creating an expanding cloud of hypervelocity projectiles that overwhelmed the shield's ability to track and deflect incoming objects. 3 hegemony ships were shredded in the opening salvo. Impossible. Tareth sputtered as his fleet's AI combat system struggled to adapt. Their weapons are kinetic. They're using primitive projectiles, the algorithms say. Sir, his second-in-command interrupted. They're accelerating. The humans are ramming speed, but the vectors, they can't possibly survive the G-forces. The Rotisserie Chicken performed a high-G maneuver that would have killed any other species, its reinforced hull groaning as it swung through an impossibly tight turn. The human crew, products of their high-gravity world, endured forces that would have turned most aliens to paste. They emerged from the turn inside the hegemony formation, where the alien ship's energy weapons risked hitting their own vessels. Hey LT, one Marine called out as he helped load another salvo of tungsten spheres. You think they know we named our ship after food because we're gonna cook 'em? The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 27 hegemony ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 3 fled, carrying with them footage that would shock the Galactic Council to its core. Their precious algorithms, their sophisticated AI combat systems, their energy weapons, all had been rendered obsolete by human ingenuity and what the aliens had dismissed as primitive technology. As the Rotisserie Chicken's crew began repairs, Captain Banks recorded a brief message to be broadcast on the same frequencies the hegemony had used to announce their victory. This is Captain Banks of the USS Rotisserie Chicken. We look forward to demonstrating human combat techniques to the rest of your fleet. Also, the Marines wanted me to add, first box of crayons is on the house. In his command center, Holy High Admiral Rin watched the footage of the battle for the 12th time, his fur rippling with distress. "By the first ones, what have we awakened?" His aide, equally shaken, could only respond, "Sir, this was just their first engagement, and they're still warming up." The Galactic Council's emergency session was interrupted by another report. The rotisserie chicken had just decimated its third hegemony battle group. This time, the human vessel had used the gravity well of a gas giant to perform what the aliens' AI systems had calculated as a physically impossible slingshot maneuver. "They're not just surviving these maneuvers," one analyst reported, her tentacles writhing in agitation. "They're thriving on them. The human crew appears to be enjoying the high-G combat." In his private chambers, Holy High Admiral Rin reviewed the latest footage. The human ship had developed a reputation that preceded it. Hegemony crews were now refusing orders to engage it directly. His fur bristled as he watched the recording of their latest battle. The camera feed showed the rotisserie chicken emerging from the gas giant's gravity well like a bullet from a gun. The human vessel had deliberately dove into the planet's atmosphere, using it to alter course in ways that the hegemony's targeting computers couldn't predict. The aliens' energy weapons, requiring precise tracking to maintain beam coherence, proved useless against such erratic movement. "Sir," Lieutenant Weathers' voice crackled through the captured combat recordings. "Marines report they're running low on purple crayons. Permission to switch to the emergency red ones." "Granted," Captain Banks replied, his voice steady despite pulling enough Gs could kill most species. "But tell them to save the blue ones. Those are their favorite." The casual banter during combat unnerved Rin more than anything else. How could they joke while performing maneuvers that should be turning their organs to jelly? The answer, of course, was written in humanity's very DNA. Evolved on a high-gravity death world, humans had developed not just the physical resilience to endure such forces, but the mental fortitude to remain operational, even cheerful, under conditions that would reduce most species to panic. "Look at their neural patterns," the Council's chief xenobiologist explained, pointing to scans taken during the battle. "The humans are producing what we'd consider excessive amounts of adrenaline and endorphins. They're not just surviving combat, they're getting a biochemical reward for it. They're literally capable of enjoying warfare." The hegemony's response was to deploy their most sophisticated, AI-driven drone ships, believing that removing the organic element would counter the humans' advantage. It was a logical decision, based on careful analysis of combat data. It was also exactly what Captain Banks had been waiting for. "About time they brought out the big guns," he commented, watching the drone fleet approach. "Tactical, remember what we learned in basic. About why humans never developed true AI for combat." Lieutenant Weathers grinned. "Because humans are too creative and unpredictable. We could never program an AI to think like us because we're batshit crazy," finished Gunnery Sergeant Williams from his weapon station. "Permission to demonstrate, sir?" What followed was a masterclass in human improvisation. The rotisserie chicken began performing maneuvers that weren't just unpredictable, they were deliberately irrational. They fired at targets that didn't exist, creating debris fields that emerged exactly where the drones attempted to dodge to. They launched missiles that deliberately missed, only to detonate and create electromagnetic pulses in precisely the wrong places, which became exactly the right places when the drone's predictable evasion protocol sent them straight into the affected zones. "The humans are using game theory against the AIs," one hegemony programmer realized in horror. "But they're not following any known strategy. They're using psychological warfare against machines." "How do you use psychological warfare against an AI?" another demanded. "You don't," came the response. "But you can use it against the programmers who wrote their combat algorithms. The humans aren't fighting the drones, they're fighting our assumptions about how space combat should work." The battle ended with the entire drone fleet destroyed or disabled. The rotisserie chicken had suffered only minimal damage, most of it cosmetic. The Marines had even found time to paint a new kill count on the hull, represented by a series of crayon doodles. As Captain Banks prepared his report to Earth Command, he noticed something that made him laugh out loud. "Sir?" Lieutenant Weathers inquired. "Just realized something," Banks replied, gesturing to their tactical display. "The maneuvers we used. Plot them against the star chart." The bridge crew gathered around the display and slowly began to grin. Their seemingly random course changes, when mapped against the backdrop of stars, had traced a crude drawing of a chicken. "Well," Banks said with a straight face, "we did tell them we were going to show them how humans do things. Send the tactical plot to Earth with my compliments. And tell the Marines, tell them they can break out the blue crayons. They've earned them." In his command center, Holy High Admiral Rin looked at his aide with growing concern. "How do you fight an enemy that treats war like an art form, sir?" the aide suggested quietly. "Worse," Rin replied, his ears flat against his skull, "like they're having fun." "They've done what?" Holy High Admiral Rin's voice cracked as his aide delivered the latest report. They're using our quantum communications network, sir. Somehow they've tapped into it. They're broadcasting music. Through every quantum-enabled device in hegemony space, a human song now played on repeat. Something called Danger Zone by a human named Kenny Loggins. The rotisserie chicken's Marines had hijacked the most sophisticated communications network in known space to play their battle anthem. The psychological impact was devastating. The song itself was unsettling enough to alien ears, but its omnipresence meant that every hegemony crew knew that the humans could access their most secure channels at will. Worse, they were using this capability not for tactical advantage, but for what appeared to be pure entertainment. Aboard the rotisserie chicken, Captain Banks was reviewing their next objective when Lieutenant Weathers spoke up. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the hegemony's central command. They're challenging us to a decisive battle." "Let me guess," Banks replied. "They've gathered their remaining forces at a tactically advantageous position." "Yes, sir. The Terminus Nebula. Their entire remaining fleet, over 200 ships. They're calling it their final solution to the human problem." Banks leaned back in his command chair, a slight smile playing across his face. "They still don't get it, do they? Lieutenant, get me ship-wide." The intercom crackled to life throughout the vessel. "Attention all hands, this is the captain. The hegemony has kindly invited us to a party at the Terminus Nebula. They've even brought party favors, about 200 of them. Now it would be rude to refuse such a gracious invitation, wouldn't it?" The Marines' enthusiastic hurrah echoed through the ship's corridors. Gunnery Sergeant Williams, Banks continued, "Please inform your Crayon enthusiasts that this is a formal engagement. They may break out the metallic colors." The battle that followed would be forever known as the Terminus Massacre, though not for the reasons the hegemony had hoped. The rotisserie chicken emerged from FTL directly in the center of the enemy formation, a suicide move by any conventional tactical analysis. "Sir," one hegemony commander reported, "they're surrounded on all sides. Their shields, wait, they still don't have shields. This is madness." What the hegemony failed to understand was that humans had never developed energy shields because their entire approach to warfare was fundamentally different. Why try to stop an energy beam when you could simply not be where it was going to hit? The rotisserie chicken began to dance. There was no other word for it. The human vessel moved through the enemy formation like a leaf in the wind, its movements fluid and unpredictable. Each dodge seemed to happen before the enemy fired. Each counterattack struck precisely where an enemy ship would be, not where it was. "How are they doing this?" demanded the hegemony admiral. "Our targeting computers can't get a lock." The answer came from an unexpected source, a junior zonobiologist who had been studying human sports. "They're using something called muscle memory," she reported. "Humans can train their bodies to react to situations without conscious thought. Their reaction times bypass their neural processing delays. They're not predicting our attacks, they're feeling them." The rotisserie chicken's crew had spent months drilling for exactly this scenario. Every crew member knew their role by heart, could feel the ship's movements in their bones. Where alien crews relied on computer targeting and AI prediction models, the humans operated on pure instinct by relentless practice. As the battle reached its crescendo, Gunnery Sergeant Williams' voice came over the ship's comm. "Sir, request permission to try something stupid." "Define stupid," Gunny, Banks replied, even as he corkscrewed the ship through a crossfire that should have vaporized them. "Remember that thing we talked about, with the kinetic rounds and the nebula gases?" Banks grinned. "You mean the thing the engineers said would probably blow us up?" "That's the one, sir." "Do it." The rotisserie chicken launched its entire remaining complement of kinetic weapon pods into the nebula's gas clouds. The tungsten spheres, designed to shred enemy ships, instead created a cascade of static electricity through the ionized gases. The nebula itself became a weapon, discharging massive bolts of energy that overwhelmed the hegemony ship's shields. As the enemy fleet fell into chaos, the humans' battle anthem once again played through their quantum networks, Highway to the Danger Zone. When the energy storms cleared, over half the hegemony fleet was disabled or destroyed. The remaining ships were retreating in disarray, their perfectly programmed combat formations shattered by an enemy that refused to follow the rules of warfare. Status report, Banks called out, his voice steady despite the gravitational forces they'd just endured. Hull integrity at 82%, sir, Weathers reported. Marines report they're down to their last few crayons, but are willing to share with the Navy personnel if needed. Always did like those crayon eaters, Banks mused. Set course for the hegemony capital. I think it's time we had a chat with their leadership about the terms of their surrender. In his command center, Holy High Admiral Rin watched the battle recordings with a mixture of horror and awe. They did all this with one ship? His aide, whose fur had gone prematurely gray over the past few months, simply nodded. Yes, sir, and according to our intelligence, Earth is building more. Rin's ears flattened completely against his skull. May the first ones have mercy on us all. The hegemony's capital world of New Damascus had never fallen in its 1,000-year history. Its orbital defenses were considered impregnable, its automated response systems unbeatable, its strategic position unassailable. Sir, Lieutenant Weathers reported, we're picking up over 1,000 defensive platforms. Also, the Marines want to know if they can name the upcoming battle Operation Extra Crispy. Captain Banks pinched the bridge of his nose, fighting back a smile. Tell them that if they can take out the planetary shield generator without scratching the paint, they can name it whatever they want. Aura echoed through the ship's corridors. The rotisserie chicken's approach to New Damascus would later be described by Holy High Admiral Rin as tactically insane, strategically brilliant, and historically terrifying. Instead of engaging the orbital defenses, the human vessel did something unprecedented. It landed right in front of the hegemony's capital building. The defensive platforms, programmed to defend against space-based threats, were completely unprepared for a ship that simply flew through the atmosphere like an oversized aircraft. The planetary shields, designed to prevent bombardment from orbit, did nothing to stop a vessel that was already inside their perimeter. The Marines' boarding action was recorded by countless security cameras, footage that would be studied by military academies for centuries to come. Led by Gunnery Sergeant Williams, they moved with what aliens would later describe as terrifying efficiency tempered by inexplicable good humor. Remember, crayon eaters, Williams called out as they secured the main hall. We're here to make history, not blow up the building. Try not to break anything expensive unless it shoots at you first. The hegemony's leadership, found huddled in their secure bunker, were treated to the surreal sight of human Marines, setting up a provisional command post in their own war room. Several of them were indeed snacking on what appeared to be colorful wax sticks while maintaining security positions. Gentle beings, Captain Banks addressed them as he entered, his dress uniform immaculate despite the combat drop they'd just performed. We need to discuss the terms of your surrender, and I'd prefer to do it before my Marines run out of crayons. They get cranky when that happens. The war ended not with a massive space battle, but with a signing ceremony. The hegemony's unconditional surrender was broadcast across all frequencies, including their quantum network, which was still occasionally playing Danger Zone, thanks to a marine tech specialist who refused to undo his handiwork. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council found itself forced to radically reassess its policies. Humanity, far from being primitive, had demonstrated a form of warfare that combined technical prowess with intuitive creativity in ways the galaxy had never seen. 1 month later, at the formal peace conference, Holy High Admiral Rin found himself seated next to Captain Banks. I must know, Rin said, his ears twitching with curiosity. Was this your plan all along? To show us that our reliance on AI and automated systems had made us predictable? Banks smiled. Actually, we just did what humans always do. We adapted. Though I have to admit, naming the ship Rotisserie Chicken probably helped. It's hard to be scared of a ship named after food. And yet, Rin mused, that name will now live in infamy throughout the galaxy. Our military academies have already begun requiring their officers to study human history, particularly what you call unconventional warfare. Speaking of education, Banks replied, reaching into his pocket, the Marines asked me to give you this as a gesture of goodwill. Rin stared at the offered object, a pristine blue crayon. They say blue tastes the best, Banks explained with a straight face. Don't ask me how they know that. The image of the most powerful military leader in the galaxy carefully accepting a crayon from a human captain would grace history books for generations to come. It marked not just the end of a war, but the beginning of a new understanding between species. In the years that followed, humanity would join the Galactic Council on their own terms. The USS Rotisserie Chicken was preserved as a museum ship, its crayon-decorated hull maintained in pristine condition. It became traditional for visiting dignitaries to leave a crayon in the ship's memorial hall. But perhaps the most telling change came in the form of a new required course at the Galactic Military Academy. Titled Human Unconventional Tactics and Strategic Creativity, its official logo featured a crayon-drawn chicken soaring through space. The course's first lesson began with a simple question: why did one human ship win a galactic war? The answer, written in blue crayon at the bottom of the syllabus: because sometimes the best way to win isn't to be the most advanced, it's to be the most human. And in Earth's shipyards, a new class of vessels was under construction. Each one bore a name chosen by its marine contingent, each one crewed by beings who understood that victory wasn't about having the best technology or the most sophisticated AI. It was about having heart, courage, and maybe, just maybe, a fresh box of crayons. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.